You ever have a moment where something just clicks and you realize you're not here to play small? That's the energy we're bringing this season. Welcome to Taboo Talks with Krystal, where we get honest about the messy middle of healing, rising, and rewriting the rules. Each week, we dive into real conversations around healing, leadership, identity, and choosing to live on your own terms. No filters, no performance positivity, just truth, tools, and a whole lot of permission to take up space. Whether it's just you and me today, or I'm joined by a guest who's been through the fire and found purpose on the other side, you're in the right place. Let's get into it. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Taboo Talks with Krystal, where we dive into the real, raw, and sometimes taboo conversations that help us heal, grow, and break harmful generational cycles. I'm your host, Krystal Casey, and I'm so grateful that you're here with me today. Today's conversation is deeply personal for me because estate planning is something that I never thought about until my husband passed away. I was a widowed mom of 5, suddenly faced with questions I didn't even know I should have been asking. And then I heard something from today's guest that stopped me in my tracks. What happens to you? What happens to your kids if something happens to you? And that question right there cracked me open because the truth is, I didn't have a plan. I hadn't thought about who would raise my children or how to make sure they would be cared for exactly the way that I wanted them to. And what Mandie showed me is that without a plan, families can get dragged through probate. Kids can end up with people you never intended, and assets can get tied up in ways that leave your loved ones very vulnerable. That's why today's episode matters, because estate planning isn't just about money, it's about love. It's about making sure your children are protected, your wishes are honored, and your family doesn't have to fight through the legal system when they should be healing. My guest today is attorney Mandie Bullock, an estate planning attorney and law firm owner who specializes in wills and trusts. And she's here today to bust the myth that estate planning is only for the wealthy or the elderly, and to show us why it matters for every single family right now. So let's dive in. Mandie, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Krystal. You said that so well. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So I shared in my intro how your words shook me, especially when you asked what happens to your kids if something happens to you. So for you, what was the moment that made estate planning so personal?
Yeah, exactly. One of the first times my husband and I think the first time we left them at home with a teenage babysitter, they were, I don't know, maybe under 5, both of them. And we don't have family out here in California. We were driving on the freeway together to go out to dinner, and I just thought, okay, we're together driving. What would actually happen to the kids if something happened to us? And that was the moment where it was really scary to think through. I think we had permanent guardians named at that point, but they are on the East Coast. And what would happen in the interim? What would the authorities do when they were trying to find the guardians, or where would the kids go? So I really started talking to people and authorities, and um, my suspicions were confirmed that, the police would knock on the door and talk to the teenage sitter and ask, do you have legal authority to be with these kids? And she would say no. And the authorities would have no choice but to take the kids into protective custody, while they were trying to find the permanent guardian or waiting for them to get there. And if you didn't have a permanent guardian, then it would go through the court system. So that's really scary, what would happen. So that's kind of what got me going on creating a kids protection plan to just make sure that the kids are always with people that you choose. There's never any lapse in custody. And it's all really clear for your people. They have detailed instructions. So that's kind of what got me going on creating that, having my,
So after that incident, is that when you put one in place for your family?
yes, exactly. So
And
yeah,
then how did you shift from that into doing it for others?
yeah, yeah, just slowly kind of created the kids protection plan. And I a lot of my network was, families with young kids. And I was thinking like most of these people don't know what would happen or definitely don't have a plan in place. And so it was really educating the community on that. And um, yeah, just like you said, kind of busting that myth that estate planning is only for the elderly or the wealthy, and getting people to think like, what would happen to my kids? And you're not you're not gonna like what the state's plan is. So yeah, a lot of my clients now are young families with minor children, because it's just really nice to have that peace of mind knowing that they would be cared for in the way you want.
Yeah. And in breaking that myth that you were just talking about, what is the truth that you want families to hear? What would happen? You already touched on it a little bit, but without having a plan in place
Mm.
versus what it could look like with the plan in place.
Yeah. Basically, if you have not named guardians, temporary or permanent, basically anyone could go down to the court and say, I want to be guardian. And it's up to a random judge who doesn't know you or your family or your kids to figure out, okay, who am I going to name? Who looks best on paper in front of me? And you can imagine maybe best case scenario, multiple good options, but even in that case, it could end up a court battle with, multiple people fighting, or maybe it's a scary option, someone who comes forward who would be the last person that you would ever want watching your kids. And because they're a close relative, the judge could pick them and it would be absolutely horrible. So, with having your guardians named ahead of time, it's really clear. Nothing goes through the court. Um, you have backup options if someone wasn't able to do it. And then also we do temporary guardian nominations. So in that short-term period, if the permanent guardian's out of town or just is a little bit farther away, you have a ID card in your wallet that would list those guardians and their phone numbers. So whoever is looking through your wallet is going to know immediately who to call if something happens to you. And those people are going to know who the permanent guardians are, and they will contact them immediately. So this all happens really seamlessly outside of court, and it's all your choices honored.
Yeah. And I know that piece right there really pulled me in when I first heard you speak,
Mm.
because the idea of five children being placed in one family, even temporarily, because same thing, I didn't know anybody here. I was limited on who my options were when we
Mm.
first moved here. And I needed to have that peace of mind that no matter what, they would be okay. And
Mm.
then the other piece of that is, I know for me personally, growing up, you hear trust funds, like that's for people with money. I
Mm.
don't really have money, so I don't really need that. Do you want to speak
Mhm.
to that?
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. That is a very common thought. So, what people don't understand here in California, probate is a court process that your loved ones have to go through if you pass away owning assets. Some really small estates don't go through probate, but a lot of people have assets that if you don't have a trust, it is a nightmare. Probate here is so expensive. It costs about 5% of your gross estate. It's really long. It's public. Creditors are put on notice. If you have minor children, there's predators who just scan the court records, know exactly when your child is turning 18, how much money they would inherit, even if it's a small amount. The publicity of it is just really creepy. Um, but even if you have a modest estate, it gets so expensive, and a trust is just what avoids that whole long, expensive public court process. So it's all you get to say how and when your kids are going to inherit their money. Your person is in charge of carrying out your trust. So yeah, with people with minor children, if you don't want them getting everything at age 18 and it being public and expensive,
Mhm.
yeah, you probably want to look at a trust. So it
And
is.
I remember you saying setting it up in ways that it protects them even from their future spouses.
Yes, we have lots of really nice options with a trust. Yep, you can protect it from divorce, bankruptcy, creditors. You can pass it down to them in that way. So it's a really nice gift to give them.
And I think that piece right there was really eye opening for me. That showed me how to physically pass on my legacy.
Mm,
I'm gone, like physically from the children, from me to the children so seamlessly with the least amount of interruptions so that
mm,
they can do what they need to do, be who they need to be, and they're protected. It's like I just love that idea of being able to protect them like from beyond.
yes, good. I'm so glad that you appreciate that because
Yeah.
it's really nice to have
And
that.
sometimes we have to let go of old ways of thinking in order to get to this place. Like, I'll get to it someday, or that's never going to happen to me. Did you have to outgrow anything to step into this mission, or were you just kind of like you saw it and you were like, nope, this is it?
Well, actually, I probably told you this story about my mom. I was doing estate planning, but didn't really appreciate I didn't have a personal connection to it, I should say, until I dealt with my mom's passing. And she had been meaning to do this. Like you said, it's something that's easy to not to put off, or a lot of people don't want to think about it. And she knew she needed to do it. And it's hard once you get sick. It's kind of the last thing you want to think about. And she ended up passing away with no will, no trust. And that was actually in a probate friendly state in New Jersey, but it was still an absolute nightmare. Just the length of time, it was 2.5 years. Everything was tied up in court. It got very expensive. And the worst part was the emotional toll it took on my brother and I, even as adults. It's just having that added layer of stress and conflict when we should have been grieving together. It was just awful. And so, kind of going through that and seeing firsthand what it looks like without having a trust and going through that core process was just really eye-opening and just reinforced for me why this is so important. And I wanted to make sure I help all my friends and clients avoid all that. So,
Yeah, I can't even imagine how hard that would be. And that story right there, I was picturing my children going through that. And I was like, no, 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 no.
It's such a nice gift to give your minor children, adult children, all of them. Yeah.
Mandie, for a moment, if you can picture the mom who's listening to this episode right now.
hmm
She has kids, she's juggling a million different things. She doesn't even want to think about estate planning. Like you said, it feels overwhelming, it's so far away. What's the very first step that she can take today to start protecting her children?
hmm I love that. I make it really painless and easy, and I have it on a timeline so it gets done, and each step is really manageable. So really, it's making that first call, making booking your appointment, and um, I I give you a questionnaire that really helps you get organized, think through everything. It's not the easiest thing to do because you do have to think through who you would want as guardian, but it does feel really good to think it through and get your choices down. And then I guide you through it, and we have meetings scheduled, and it gets done in a really timely manner. And then at the end, it feels so good to know that your wishes are now in legal documents, and everything will go so easily and smoothly for your kids. So I would just say, yeah, once you make that call, I really get the ball rolling, and it's pretty painless.
And I can 100% attest to that. Mandie, it was an amazing process walking through it with you. And things were still very heavy for me personally when
Mhm.
I had set this up with you,
Mhm.
and you did amazing. And in
Thank
the end,
you.
I have what we call the binder. And the kids know to look for the binder and to tell the adults and the authorities if anything ever happens to me, they need to go find the binder.
Oh, good. I'm
I
so
love that.
glad.
Yeah. So before we wrap up, I have just a couple more questions. I love to say we never lose. You can never lose. We either rise or we learn. What
Mm.
has been one of your hardest growth moments in this work, and how has it shaped the way that you help families?
Ooh, ooh, ooh. Hmm. Ooh, Krystal, this is a good one. Um,
Take your time.
yeah, let me think for a second. I would say, um, yeah, the hardest moments for me are when someone passes away and I am now dealing with their grieving family and carrying out the terms of the plan. So it's rough. This is someone who I have, all my clients I get to know really well and I get pretty close with them. And then having to learn about them passing it's really emotional and um it is often sometimes I haven't met their family and they're, grieving and it's it's tough. It's a tough process, that part of it. And it really makes me always just going through all of those, we call that, trust administration. If something it's been a process, just seeing it play out and knowing, okay, I need to make sure this plan is done as well as it can be to minimize the effect on the family. And a lot of attorneys haven't had to do many, and I, for whatever reason, I've done a lot of them, and um, I feel like I've gotten much better about doing it and dealing with it and, facing death and how to interact with their family at that moment and really knowing and being confident in my plan that I've done. And so yeah, that's always the hardest part for me. And it is fulfilling to see like, okay, the plan is making it go as smooth as possible for them. So yeah, that's the hardest part for me.
This is hard work that you do, and
Mhm.
you do amazing work. And
Thank you.
it is difficult to talk about. It is
Mhm.
difficult to go through, no matter what end of the experience that you're on. And
Mhm.
the reason that I'm having these conversations is because it's inevitable,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? And we all have to face it. And when we go through these things, it is so much easier when you know the support that's out there.
Right.
And you are one of the most amazing supports that I have in my circle. So I honor you, Mandie.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Of course. Before we wrap up, is there anything else on your heart that you want to share with the families out there listening today?
Um, I think we covered it. You explained it so well. And yeah, like we said, even those young families with minor kids, I feel like it's a lot. It's inside of you. No, like a lot of people know I need to figure out who would take care of these kids, and it's lingering inside you and it's always there, and get it done. It feels so good to get it done. Because there is always a part of every parent who is thinking about it in some way, and it's really nice to get it out of your mind and into a legal document. So
Absolutely.
it's not as bad as you think.
And Mandie, where can our listeners connect with you if they are ready to take that first step?
Yeah, my website or my Facebook page. So Mandie Bullock, ESQ.com, Mandie with an IE. And yeah, what's my Facebook?
I'll
Uh,
have those linked
yeah,
in the
yeah,
show notes. So
perfect. Yeah,
everyone can grab that stuff there as well. Mandie,
awesome.
thank you so much for being here and for bringing not just your expertise, but your story.
Thank you so much, Krystal, for having me.
You're welcome. To my listeners, if today's conversation stirred something in you, don't push it aside. Don't wait until someday. Mandie has created something powerful for you, a $1,000 golden ticket that includes a free planning session and a $250 credit toward your estate plan. Again, the link will be in the show notes. So you can grab it there, reach out to Mandie, and do not put this off one more day. Please share this episode with someone else who needs it, because these conversations don't just protect assets, they protect legacies. That's why we talk about the taboo, because healing doesn't happen in silence. It happens when we face the hard things and take action with love. I'll see you again next week on another episode of Taboo Talks with Krystal. Woo! Take a breath, because this isn't just about pushing through or keeping your head down. This is a season of stepping up, of making moves. And the move is breaking the pattern, choosing differently, learning to trust yourself enough to stop, recalibrate, and move with intention. Breaking cycles, not just for you, but for the generations that come after you. If this episode resonated, please send it to someone who needs it, because real conversations deserve to be heard. And if you enjoyed today's episode, I'd love for you to leave a review on Apple or Spotify. It helps us reach more people who are ready to step it up. Listen, if you're not just here to survive, but to build something real, whether it's in your life, your leadership, or your business, let's connect. Whether you want to work with me, book me as a speaker, or learn how to build a brand that actually aligns with your purpose, head over to krystalcasey.com/links. Everything you need is there. And remember, you were never meant to just keep going. You were meant to break the cycle, build something real, and reclaim your power. Keep leading, keep creating, and I'll see you back here next Tuesday.